Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to About the Arts. I guess it would have helped if I had my microphone turned up. We are here for a special show. We do these every month, the day before the first Thursday Art Walk and right before the first Thursday Art Talk that happens every Wednesday at the Quartzsite Brewery. This month's featured
first
artist,
Wednesday.
The first Wednesday, sorry. First Wednesday is the Art Talk, talking about the art that's going to be on display at the Trails End Gallery for the first Thursday Art Walk. We are joined here with our good friend Tim Nielsen. Welcome,
Hey,
Tim.
Chuck.
How are you today?
Fantastic.
Enjoying the heat?
When I'm in the gallery, it's really nice. And what you step out and whoa.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's some humidity to this heat.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
Yesterday was the hottest day of the year so far, and we're coming up on next week, looking at, looks like about next Tuesday or so, it's going to be over triple digits. It's going to be 101, 102, getting hotter. But you know what? We just push through it and keep on going, right?
Yeah, not my fave, but it's supposed to cool off a little bit tomorrow, I think, for the art walk.
Yeah, I think it'll be in the mid-80s.
Yeah,
and then
that's perfect.
Keep
That's
staying that way
perfect.
till the end of the week, and then over the weekend it's going to keep on rising.
Yeah.
But
Well, weather, we like to talk and complain about the weather, right?
what else are you going to do? It does seem kind of fruitless to always complain about something that you have absolutely zero control over.
It's beautiful out. I will say that.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It is. At least it's sunny, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So we have the first Thursday Art Walk coming up tomorrow, and we've got some great artists featured, and we've got a lot of great stuff all over town happening. Do you want to get into that first a little bit, or?
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So first Thursday Art Walk coming up on Thursday. That happens from 5 to 8 p.m. in downtown Chewelah. Again, the Art Talk is tonight from 6:30 to 8 p.m. at the Quartzsite Brewery. It'll be featuring Gina Fruin. She's going to be the artist featured at... Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. She is the artist that's going to be featured at the Trails End Gallery. You know what, Tim? I do apologize. We've been streaming online, but I had my microphone muted. Apologies to everybody out there. We're going to start the show over again right now.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to About the Arts. Apologies for the delay there. I don't know what happened because we had our music playing in here, and that means the microphone should have been on. But you know what? We're going to do it anyway. This is About the Arts. We feature this show on the first Wednesday of every month before the Art Talk that happens at the Quartzsite Brewery. That's from 6:30 to 8 p.m. tonight. And then tomorrow, the first Thursday Art Walk is happening from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock. That happens the first Thursday of every month. We've got some great artists featured, and we have joining us today Tim Nielsen right here in the,
Hello.
in the studio.
It's good to be here. Always.
Again, sorry about that. Yeah, we did. We were halfway through it, man, and hadn't turned the microphones on yet.
Well,
Crazy.
Don't look at me.
I know. I'm looking at Tim for answers. It was my fault. So sorry for the silence there, everybody. But we are going. So tomorrow, we have Gina Fruin featured at the Trails End Gallery. The plein air exhibit is going to be happening at the Yale Press and at the Trails End Gallery. You're still going to have some of those up, and there's some amazing pieces this year.
Yeah, there really is.
They really are. And then Karen Starkey and Lynn Cassidy are going to be at the Spotlight Gallery put on by the Chewelah Creative District and the Chewelah Arts Guild. That is happening at the Aaron Huff Memorial Center. It's always a fun thing to go there. We're also going to have I should have pulled his name up, but he's a young man that we pulled into busk. We're going to have a busker out in front of him,
Oh,
out in front of the
nice.
building. So
Yeah,
he's
at least they'll be in the shade. I'm
Yeah.
happy for them, and hopefully it'll cool down from the current temp.
Oh, I hope so. And we've got some options for him. If it's too hot outside, he's more than welcome to come on in the building and start playing there. And then Blake Weirs, he's going to be featured at the Quartzsite Brewing.
Yeah, he's
Company,
been there.
so-
He's been there a few months, but his work is really fun.
It really is. He uses a lot of recycled materials.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, great stuff. And also one of our DJs. He's our Monday night DJ. He is the
Really?
professor that does the Rock Country.
Oh,
yeah, right here on
very
KCHW.
cool.
Yeah, yeah. He's a really fun guy. He's very multi-talented and incredibly intelligent guy as well. If you ever have a conversation with him, and I love that his artwork is focused on environmentalism and reusing, reducing, and repurposing items.
Yep. He'll be a good good person to have in your recycled art show next year.
Oh,
or
he will.
whenever it is that you guys have that. I can't remember.
Yeah, and we did have him and his wife both brought some amazing pieces to the Trash Parade Ball.
Oh yeah,
They brought
yeah.
they brought the hats that,
That
were
was
made
fun.
out of the what was it? Sparkling alcohol cans. Yeah, really great stuff. Both of them, him and his wife Deb, are really great people. They're fun to have around. All right, so first let's talk. I want to give a huge thank you to everyone that was at the Red Elvis's concert the other night.
Oh yes.
I know you wanted to talk a little bit about that.
Oh yeah.
and we
How
ran out
can
of
we
time.
not?
Right? Wasn't that amazing?
Yeah, it really was, and it's pinched me. We're in Chihuahua,
Right?
and it was just so much fun. And they were so, I guess they've been touring for what, 30 years?
30 years. This was
And
actually their 30th
write-
anniversary
They
tour.
write their own music, and they were really good musicians.
Incredibly
And,
tight.
and it was great that Craig, and his band, that they were up there, and that he found them and brought them. Good one, Craig.
He really did.
And yeah,
And Craig tells a story. So Craig has been a fan of the Red Elvises since he was a child.
Wow.
He actually saw a documentary or not a documentary, but one of their concerts played on PBS when he was a kid many, many, many years ago. And he's been following them ever since and was just ecstatic. I think it was about 8 years ago they were in the area. They played in Spokane, and he actually opened up for them when they were in Spokane when he
Wow.
was just doing a solo act. And then found out they were coming through the area again. They contacted him. They'd kept in touch all the years. Said, hey, would you open for us in Spokane again? And he said, hey, if you guys got an extra day, come on up to Chihuahua. And they agreed.
it's awesome.
Yeah.
You realize they're like a traveling band of gypsies. I mean,
They are.
they travel all over the world, it sounds like.
They do. Yeah,
And,
they've played everywhere from Siberia. They've got a huge following in Europe. They kind of have this cult following.
I
they've-
could totally understand
Yeah.
that. It reminded me of like, when we went to the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah.
It's that kind of group that you would see or event over, many, many times. And it was fun. They had everyone out of their, well, not everyone, because I was chair dancing.
I was dancing
But,
behind the sound booth most of the
But
night.
it was really fun. And yeah.
It was, and they've even had their music featured. VH1 did a behind the music on them. Remember VH1?
I do remember VH1.
It wasn't that long ago. They had a documentary. Again, I already said the documentary on PBS. One of their songs was actually in the film Armageddon, like one of the biggest movies of all time, Bruce Willis film. One of their songs was in there. There was a film done about them, not about them. They were fictional characters in the movie, but it featured all their music. They were in the film, and for the life of me, I think it was The Last Samurai. It kind of rings a bell. It was sort of a cult classic film now that features the band throughout the
Wow.
whole movie.
Wow.
And yeah, and it kind of has this whole following behind this movie. It has millions of fans for this movie, and I'm still just blown away that we were able to get them here.
It's that I don't know what it takes to do that, but to be able to continuously tour, it must pay the bills, obviously.
Right?
And they were so tight, and it was fun to watch them. They would take turns on bass or doing rhythm or lead or
Yeah.
keyboards, and the drummer was amazing. Their rhythm and lead guitarist Yuri, he was awesome, and it was just a lot of fun.
And the oversized balalaika was incredible. The balalaika, the big red triangle
yes,
instrument they're playing.
yes.
Yeah, I think that's actually their bass guitar, but they modeled it to look like a balalaika. And I've heard Igor's
okay.
guitar is like legendary among the music scene. It was a custom made guitar that he had made for himself.
Wow.
And he's known for the sound he creates with that guitar, which we were lucky enough to hear.
Well, it was really interesting because you would hear a lot of rockabilly, even surf rock.
Yeah.
That just really fun stuff. Klezmer,
Mm-hmm.
and I even, they were even riffing on Zorba the Greek.
Yeah.
It was just really fun. They had such a music. I could see why they would be so popular
Yeah.
in Europe.
And then they go right into like electrified polka,
Yeah.
which is hilarious.
Yeah, it was like the Stray Cats, you know.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of, boy, who all does this remind me of?
You know, it kind of hit a lot of the great music genres that we love. The rockabilly, even a lot of that, sort of folky classic, not classic, but that Ukrainian Eastern folk music, and the ska, reggae, a little bit of that thrown in there, and like you said, like the Stray Cats, a lot of that
Yeah,
sort of jazz revival.
They just had fun.
Yeah.
They really, but their beats and their tempos would,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, wow, they must be really, really good. I can appreciate it. I'm not a musician,
Right.
but I sure appreciated listening to the music.
Same.
It was wonderful.
And I did look up that movie. It's called Six String Samurai.
Six String Samurai. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm gonna look that one
It's
up.
got a cult classic. I don't know if it's available on Netflix, but I don't know. We'll see.
Amazon.
Yeah, look it up.
We'll
probably,
find it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Six String Samurai. All right, but you are here to talk about
Gina Fruin.
Gina Fruin.
Yes.
So yeah, why don't you give us a little introduction on Gina and some of her history and how you know her?
Well, last Sunday actually was as when she brought her ceramic art to the gallery was first time I've met her. I've seen her before. She has a gallery like with a few other artists. She's a member of the Trackside Gallery in Spokane.
Say that again.
The Trackside Gallery.
Okay.
And it's kind of a working studio gallery. And it's not too far from the Davenport, maybe another 5 or 6 blocks west. But really nice feel to it, industrial, like an old warehouse feel to it. And but no, Gina taught she taught art and ceramics at Gonzaga University for 20 some odd years. And I think she's still a member of the faculty. She got her, I know that she got her master's from Arizona State, but she has an amazing list. It was 6 pages long of all the shows and grants and awards and everything. She's very accomplished.
Yeah.
And amazing work, truly amazing work. And I really appreciate it because my background, first and foremost, is sculpture.
Right.
So I really key on that. But she's been this year will be the 18th year for the Little Spokane River Studio Tour. And she was she was one of the founders of that. And there's a few of them. And it's become a huge thing. And it must have been at least 3 or 4 years ago that Nandis, my wife, went to that. It's always on a Saturday, so, I'm stuck in the gallery.
Yeah.
But she was just sending me pictures. You should see, we represent a lot of the artists that are here for that studio or tour. There's pop-up galleries and stuff like that. It's really cool.
And is that a tour of multiple galleries then that are open, or
Yeah,
it's pop-up
it's
galleries?
just, they have to have like parking, the whole bit, fields, and the artists that are in it are artists that have been invited to it.
Okay.
And it's on Gina's property and her neighbor, who's also a ceramist, and it's in that area of North Spokane, on the Little Spokane River, and that neighborhood. Anyway, I am going to go this year for sure.
Nice.
But so anyway, Nandis came back and said, "Oh my gosh, you should see this ceramic artist." She goes, "I bought a couple things." Yeah, and they were just a really cool teapot, very sculpturally done, you know, and some of her stuff is done to the point of it's not a teapot anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's a work of art. It's a sculpture. And they're just really fun pieces. You know, they
Yeah.
have a bit of whimsy, but they're really, you know, she's a sculptor,
Oh yeah.
and her anyway. So Nandis got the idea to invite her, to ask her if she would want to do a show. So she did, and she was she goes, well, I'm pretty picky about, you know, where I show, but she agreed. And then, you know, here it was, you know, she had to, we got a hold of her, you know, after, because her show was scheduled for May, June, I think back then of 2024. And she had overbooked herself. And so that left an open May, June. So what did we do? We kind of gave us an opportunity. I thought, well, I got to do something. I can't get an artist this late, you know, with just 3 months to go.
Mm-hmm.
So we launched the Chihuahua Plein Air Festival.
I love it.
So it worked, you know.
Overbooking yourself. I have no idea what that's like.
Pardon?
Overbooking
Yeah.
yourself. I have no idea what I don't know what that
Anyway,
means.
but she did reconfirm that January, you know, for this year, for July, August.
Yeah.
So that was nice. And then you work with the artist coming up to it. You start the dialogue, which I was, you know, on the gallery side. Nandis confirmed that she would be doing a show.
Yeah.
And then, so my job is to, okay, what's your title? I need photos. I need to do this, you know, how many pieces are you going to have in the show? How many would you like? And I said, oh, I'd love 30. And she comes back, well, I might have 10 or 12. She goes, my next show, which is a biggie, is at the Junt Gallery at Gonzaga.
Yeah.
It's their museum gallery space.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
So she will be having a big show
Nice.
there in September.
For a
But
second, I
just-
thought you were going to say she showed up with 30 pieces. I was going to say, wow, 10?
She did. That's
Oh.
what blew my mind. She submitted, and she had 32 pieces.
Oh, wow.
You know, and some of them are small, but these big ones, these are big pieces. Like the ones on the poster, those are 17 to 20 inches tall. They're big.
Yeah.
And so it was really fun. I was so grateful that we had built all those display units of various sizes, you know, heights and thing, and
Yes.
had them all painted up. And I could collapse the gallery space down, you know, move those walls that are in there. They're movable. So I collapsed the space, and we created just the right amount of space that we needed for her work. And it's kind of refreshing. It's very refreshing to have a more three-dimensional show like this. So
I do love when you go in, you know, the paintings are on the sides. You get all that sort of aisle down the middle where you can see all the pieces, and Nandis walks by and slaps my hand and says, "Don't touch that, Chuck. Chuck, don't touch that." No. I know the rules. I'm good.
anyway, it's fun. I really feel fortunate that we have her. She couldn't make this talk, the radio interview, but you know, she's an educator, so of course she can talk about her work.
Yeah.
And she put together a good, you know, just had to update her PowerPoint. And so got a really nice PowerPoint for tonight.
Nice.
And
nice.
It'll be a really good talk. And she has really developed the manner in which it's soda-fired clay works. You know,
Yeah.
she has this, I've got a picture of her kiln in the gallery, and it's just really interesting. The whole, you know, you can wood fire, soda fire, you know, there's gas fired, there's electric kilns, and they all do different things.
Yeah.
And so this is really neat because you get all these organic colors, you know, and the variation, the flashing, you know, where you get these exciting colors. And there's glaze and stuff in there too, but the soda, the way it vaporizes the mix of whatever they're using, you know, helps create these really interesting finishes. And,
Yeah.
and I think people will be amazed at the work. I personally hadn't seen ceramic work like this before, so it's really exciting to have it in there. And she's very accomplished, and I just feel really fortunate that we got her up.
Yeah.
And I will say, she came to the gallery, and we started unloading her stuff, and she looked at Nandis and she said, "Thank you for pestering me."
Aw.
She was grateful for the space and what we had waiting for her.
That's awesome.
It's a nice, we have a nice spot there.
You
know?
do.
So
And for people online that are watching, I've got one of her pieces up right now. I've got a few pieces here that we're gonna take a look at. Now, this is the soda firing method. I've got a couple questions about that. Do you know enough about it to answer some questions?
I'm visualizing what I'm going to have to read back.
And can you see you can see on your computer what I have on
Yeah.
the screen here? Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you know the names of these pieces, or are you familiar enough with the work?
I don't know the names right off the
That's
top of
okay.
my head, but the one with the double handle, that's an amphora, and this other one I think is really, really fun. It's got a bird on it, and there's kind of the whimsy part of it,
Yeah.
and it's just really interesting. In one of the pieces, it's farther down on
Yeah,
the poster.
Let me get over here.
Actually,
Trying to work the computer live on the air. It's super fun.
no,
right?
those are all like the picture.
Yeah.
It's would you really use that for a picture?
If I
Probably
had it-
not.
if
but
I had it in my house,
but it's
I would.
become just this absolute piece of sculpture that's just intriguing to me. That all the textures,
Yeah.
the colors, and her combinations of things, and just the organic quality of her work is, I think it's amazing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say, I was really gonna comment on the first thing that jumps out to me is the textures on here.
Oh yeah.
I wanna touch it. I wanna feel it, and some of it, if I scroll back up here, again, if you're listening on the air, the people that are online joining us can see these pieces we're talking about. Phenomenal pieces. This piece over here on the right, it looks like some sort of a what is that? What would you call that? A bowl or
Well,
a chalice?
I think it's called a double-handled amphora.
okay.
But
amphora.
it's big. That piece is about 13, 14 inches
Mhm.
tall. Maybe the same across.
but it
And
almost
it's just a really interesting three-dimensional piece.
it really is.
to
It almost
me.
looks like on the right side there's almost like a fabric sort of texture.
Yeah.
And then I'm almost I've seen 3 or 4 different things in there. I look at it one way, it looks like feathers. You look at it another
Yep.
way, it looks like maybe it's layers of leather wrapped up on each other.
Absolutely.
and it's-
Absolutely. And on some of her pieces sit on these, like that one right there on the left,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of a triangular shaped trivet, and she's got it pieced together. It looks like it's a metal, screw that's holding it together when it's actually in clay, but she's daubed
Yeah.
a little silver glaze on the Phillips head part of it.
Nice.
Just really fun stuff like that. So that piece comes off, the little cup comes off on the right.
Right there. The
Yeah,
circling?
yeah. And it's just interesting.
See, to me that little cup, it almost looks like it's made out of like an alder bark or something, or like a spruce bark or something. It looks wood to me.
Yeah,
but
leather.
Yeah.
It's just interesting. So, and I really like all these colors, and it's there's a lot of good ceramic artists in the area, and it's nice to see stuff that's just different too.
it is.
And we're just really grateful that she's up here. And so first and foremost, I just invite anyone and everyone to come to the brewery and listen to her talk, because I think it really helps your appreciation of when to go see the art after you've heard the artist's narrative. That's so important to me. And
I agree.
and we got Jeannie Corbett pouring beers. Thank you, Jeannie, for coming in. On was probably her day off or whatever. So
It's awesome to have her back in town.
It is.
Yeah, I know
It
she left
is.
Wheeler for a while. She's kind of everybody in town knows her and loves her.
Exactly.
She's really great.
Exactly. And so this is just really fun. But when and it was fun walking through the gallery with her because I've got, she was looking at really liked a couple of the artists she had seen, and she knows a number of them. She
Right.
was looking at people who very likely will be showing at her Little Spokane River studio tour.
Yeah.
And but like Linda Hyde Cancel, she was like, and how do I not know this person? So it was really
Linda's
fun
amazing.
to talk with her about Linda's work. And then in the back room, of course, I've got Rick Jondro pieces. They're not for sale, but this is a legacy project that I'm working on
Yeah.
with the estate. And the cool thing is we have a lot of really good art in there. So I think she just left. She goes, well, you guys just do your thing. I'm not going to tell you how to set the show up.
Yeah.
And so she'll be coming at 6:00 tonight to drop off 2 more pieces.
Oh, so she hasn't seen it all arranged yet.
Hasn't seen it arranged.
Oh.
She's seen the gallery and stuff, but it wasn't finished. The setup wasn't finished. I
Yeah.
didn't have tags. We really hadn't, we really go through our process, and Nanas was really busy moving things around. No, I want this here, I want that there, and it was really fun for her to get in there and do it. And it's nice, when you put up that finished vinyl, Soda Fired Clayworks, Gina Fruin, and then you've got these 2 killer pieces that'll be underneath it with 2 pedestals of different heights. It's dramatic. And
Right.
some pieces look better against the brick, and some look better against the white wall on the other side.
I'm
And
sure
then-
by now you have I know you have a good eye for this stuff. You and Nandis both. Do you ever get nervous when you set up a show like this for an artist before they come see it? Hope you set it up right. Hope you have
Not really.
what they
No,
envision
I-
in mind. No.
I think I'm quite certain that, this piece could have gone on that pedestal or vice versa or whatever.
Right.
But we know enough how to hang a show, how to
That's true.
arrange things, and we've been at it now for 10 years.
Right. Right.
And I enjoy that. And, I've hung a couple shows with Nandas, but usually it's just me.
Mm-hmm.
And you just kind of close the door and just you start on one wall and kind of work your way. It's like putting a puzzle together. And then, we had, since I moved the walls forward to close the space down to make this a little more intimate space for this show, the right amount of space.
Right.
So you don't have it too cramped, you don't have it too far apart where it looks lacking. It's really nice. But then the back, so the main part of the gallery, I had new pieces coming in from other artists, changing out their work. So I've got to get all that hung.
Mm-hmm.
And then the back, was, once we took all the art down from the Women Painters of Washington, I had to get all that boxed up for them. And then there was barely any room to move back there. And so that's all gone now. And I had all the Jondros that were on the floor and other stuff, and everything's up. But it doesn't amaze me how much, it just takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And in between that, you're trying to get your work, my jewelry work done. And of course, I get excited for a show like this, so I want to have some new pieces, which I did. Made some fun stuff for the cases, and you just want to put your best foot forward across the board.
Oh, yeah.
For all the artists, and I had to retire a number of tags. They kind of yellow after a while, and so I had to reprint a bunch of new ones and just keep everything fresh and clean and organized, and it takes more and more time
Oh yeah.
every year.
So you're saying you have some more of your jewelry out there on display? Is that what you meant?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. I took the time to make some more rings, another really nice pendant, a bunch of cuff bracelets, and yeah,
And
it,
you
it
said
looks nice.
you said earlier you have your foundation of your was sculptural. You started out with sculptures. Um, what kind of sculpture did you do? What kind of sculpture work?
Well, when I applied to get into the BFA program when I went in college, you have to get accepted into that program. It's considered the more professional track. From
Mhm.
there, you might get an MFA.
Yeah.
If you wanted to teach. And so I think my problem was I kind of liked everything, but I think I'm really a sculptor. So I took everything I could. I graduated with like 30 more art credits than I needed.
Yeah.
But I did a complete concentration in sculpture, and then I did also a complete concentration in jewelry and metalsmithing.
Mm-hmm.
And then with a big minor in drawing, just years of life drawing,
Right.
drawing composition, graphic illustration. I did that because all my teachers always talked about how important being able to draw was
Right.
as a base skill to what you're doing.
Oh yeah.
But as far as the sculpture side of it, I did some wood carvings. I really got into bronze, and so I spent 3 years, doing stuff, taking bronze classes, which was fun, and we ran our own foundry, which I really
Nice.
enjoyed, and did welding one term. It didn't really stick. I think I'm more of a modeler. I'm a sculptor.
Right.
I work by the subtractive process. I'll grab a block of wax, and from that there's a ring or a bracelet or something in there,
Right.
and I'm just whittle it away till I get what I want.
And I'm assuming there's a lot of similarities between sculpture work and your jewelry making, right?
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
I
mean, it
look
essentially is
at
sculptures.
well, I'm sculpting what
Yeah.
I do,
Yeah.
and so it was just my best skill, really. I think it allowed me to advance faster within the jewelry world,
Right.
having that innate skill. Because for a while, even though I went to diamond setting school, maybe 5 years after I graduated,
Yeah.
which was a big deal, 6 months long, 40 hours a week.
Woo.
The technical side, you really have to know how to do things correct.
Oh yeah, especially when you're dealing with
Other
such fine
people's
little-
work,
Yeah, and
you
other
know.
people's
Yeah.
money, and
Yes,
and the such fine, delicate, valuable pieces. You don't want to get that wrong.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to break stones or whatever. It happens,
Yeah.
but you can
Or-
mitigate that,
Or have
by-
people
through-
come back
through
with stones
knowledge.
missing.
Well, that happens
Yeah.
too sometimes. Well, it looks like your prongs are broken off. Oh, I didn't see that.
Laura's got a stone missing on one of her rings. We might have to bring her in to see us someday.
But it's fun. So I mean, I feel fortunate that I have that. I've been doing that for 45 years. The jewelry part of it. I think my first love really is sculpture.
Yeah.
But I've woven that fully into what I'm doing with jewelry. So, and when I do something bigger like a cuff bracelet or something where I can really work three-dimensionally, it satisfies
Yeah.
that part. I would love to do some bigger pieces. I've done like smaller maquettes before, which are studies
Mm-hmm.
for, you might do something that's 10 inches across, but maybe your vision is for that to be 5 feet across.
Right.
And
In solid gold.
and an installation. No, something else. I mean, a piece of outdoor public sculpture.
Yeah.
But I just never went that way. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to make a living at it, and I've been able to make a living at being a jeweler.
Right.
So that
And-
worked out.
And you said you do find satisfaction in it. Do you find that you get that artistic rush that you need from creating your jewelry?
I love what I do.
Oh, good.
I'm wearing a lot of hats right now because it's basically me running the gallery,
Mm-hmm.
but then I design and do custom work for other jewelers. And then I have my own clients here in the gallery, and I've got my own people that get referred to me literally from coast to coast. I've had clients in DC to San Francisco
Yeah.
to LA to Texas, all over. You never know when that's going to happen.
Right.
It's just referrals, but it's really fun to be able to just make stuff to put in the gallery too. So
Yeah.
that's what I would like to have a little bit more time to do. It's just hard. That's usually last on the list. I have to take care of all these other things before I can do some stuff.
Right.
So I just happened this last month, I was freed up, and in about a week, I produced about 7 or 8 pieces of my own,
Nice.
and that's fun. It's nice.
Do you ever do a commission piece for a client and think, man, I really wish I could put this thing in my display?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll bet.
yeah. I mean, sometimes I'll do it, especially if it's my design, and I'll tell them, okay, here's the option here. I can mold it so I can use it going forward because I really like this as a platform, kind of a base
Yeah.
to start from, or if you want this unique, it's this. And yeah, it's never really been a problem.
How do you mold? If you don't mind me asking, I know. I mean, you don't pour gold. I mean, I know you
No,
shape it
you
and
can create a
pound
rubber
it
mold, a silicon rubber mold of the
Yeah.
piece. You can mold the wax,
Mhm.
or you can cast the piece and mold the piece itself. And I just kind of, whatever I think is going to work best. Sometimes if you have a really, not necessarily intricate, but you've got so much time into this piece, it's not a bad idea to mold the wax, because even if it gets nicked or cracked or whatever, I can fix that before it gets cast. But let's say, God forbid, you blow the casting, and it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
But you might have 2-3 days that you're out on that model.
Oh yeah.
And you have to recarve the thing.
Oh, and start from scratch.
It is. You would. And then I look at it and go, well, I might have done this differently. And so it's
Well,
funny.
and that's where your drawing skills come in handy, because I'm sure you sketch all this stuff out, and then if you do have to redo a piece, at least you have your sketches to fall back on.
Yeah, I don't anymore.
Yeah.
I direct carve. I can already see the piece
I got you.
that I want in my mind. And so I just skip that. There's no real need for me to do a technical drawing unless I'm working with someone, let's say in DC or something. I might do a quick sketch, but then I'll tell them I'll carve this, and then I'll take some really good macro pictures of the model, and
Right.
then you can look at that. And so,
Now,
people can see the model 3-dimensionally before it's cast, and we can make changes
And-
if
and
it's not right.
I'm not 100. I did a little bit of bronze, pouring in college. Not much. Not even enough to say that I really even did it. Barely even remember it. But with the wax, I know. Do you do like a what do you call it? A replacement pour? Am I using the right terms?
It's called lost wax casting.
Yeah, lost wax, that's what I was
You're
looking
going to
for.
make a plaster mold and burn it out, just the same way you would do with bronze.
Right.
There's kind of newer techniques for bronze. They call it shell casting, where you'll dip the piece with all this spruage, the connecting things, the gates for the metal to make its way into the piece.
Yeah.
And then you dip it, you get it with plaster, then you dip it in shell, that hardens, you dip it in plaster again, you do shell. And the advantage to that, I guess, I've never done it, I've seen it done, is that you might have and it's really hard, and it's maybe only 1/2 inch thick all over the piece, versus a huge kind of a plaster mold
Yeah.
that can crack and other things.
That's more of like a block, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it. But the funny thing to me is okay, so it's more sophisticated, but really I'm using the same technique that's been used for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, the Bronze Age.
Oh yeah,
You know, they would make stuff and then, you know, make a mold and then pour on the bronze.
that's what I find fascinating
You
about
know.
it. It's a
So
literally
it's
the exact
really
same techniques.
kind of it's a low tech idea. It's just become ultra refined for our particular business, but it's the same thing. Like I know people who do the castings for hip joints or this or
Mhm.
that. You know, that's highly specialized
Same technique.
casting, but it's the same technique, different, you know, different ways of doing it.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I'm sure they have higher tech facilities, but basic same principle. Yeah.
yeah. Well, it's really cool. Like with Gina's kiln, you know, when it kind of excites me because you see these pictures, you know,
Mhm.
anytime there's fire and high heat,
Oh yeah.
you know, there's drama, you know, and
Oh yeah.
they're fitting that bamboo tube in with the mix that they want that's going to create the flash, the fire, the gas
Yeah.
that is giving these pieces their unique finish and really thin glaze, kind of an iridescence to them.
Mm-hmm.
But it just looks low tech,
Yeah.
you know, and we used to do that in bronze. We would brick up our own kiln. We would take pipes and drill holes in them and hook up our gas, you know, and figure out where we wanted the heat source
Mm-hmm.
coming in, and then a hood on top, and then load all the molds in, you know, and some of them are 40 pounds, 50 pounds.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and they're all stacked and stuff, so the wax can burn out.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're bricking up the kiln, and then you slowly take it up in temperature so you don't give thermal shock.
Right.
And it's a long process. It's really like a 24-hour process to take a kiln up and back down to the temperature where it's still hot.
Right.
You have to have, you know, these thermal gloves on to unload that kiln, and you're just sweating, you know,
Oh yeah.
and taking these big molds and then putting them in kind of a boxed frame on the floor that has dirt. So, you know, so halfway up the mold, there's dirt that's holding it in case something comes apart and you're spilling bronze all over. And
Right. Right.
in the meanwhile, you're heating all this metal, and we were doing 150-pound pours.
Ooh.
And two guys on it, you know, on this, I forget what it's called, but to lift this giant crucible out that
Yeah.
you've got the metal and you're checking it with your pyrometer and you're at 2100 degrees. So you pull it out, and then you're going to wait. Okay, this pour, we're going to do this at 1980 degrees,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then you start and you go around, and literally within I would say a minute and a half, you might pour 15 giant molds,
Yeah.
you know.
You got to go quick.
Yeah, you got to go quick. And even then it's, you know, it's probably only cooling to 1800 at that point, but it's, you know, I mean, what can go wrong with
Right.
molten metal at 2000 degrees and
Rushing and going really fast.
Yeah,
and-
yeah, you know, and spilling and yeah.
I took a glass blowing class a few years ago in Seattle, and man, talk about absolutely exhilarating, just absolutely thrilling.
I bet.
You got that
Yeah.
melted glass, and then the sensation of blowing through that tube and feeling the glass do what you want it to. You know, it's just this amazing, empowering feeling, and it's glowing red, and you're maneuvering it and making
And I
it
was
move.
always amazed that you see him
Yeah,
basically taking shears to it.
yeah. and
How are
cutting it.
they cutting? It's molten.
Yeah, because
You
it's
know,
melted. Yeah.
How are they doing that? How does it not suffer from thermal shock just from that?
Right.
When I see that process, I
Or
just
you know
have
the wet newspaper,
just
and
have-
you're rolling it in the wet
yes,
newspaper, and yeah, it's
I
just
just have all
phenomenal.
kinds of questions like, wow, how does that work?
And
You
then-
know,
and then to
glass
actually-
just has amazing properties.
It really does. And then to actually do it and then have it come out as I made a pumpkin. You know, nothing too exciting, but it was what
You
was
know,
what
or
we
a
brought home at the end of the
chandelier,
class.
or I mean,
Yeah.
seriously, or one of Chihuli's
Oh man.
giant floral pieces, and he's like a conductor. He's got all his
Mm-hmm.
people working, and he's kind of conducting it, and they're doing all the work. I mean,
Oh yeah. I've got my uncle. He passed away last year. He was in Seattle. He was a founding member of the Seattle Repertory Theater. He was a founding member of the Ashland Shakespeare Company too.
oh wow,
Used to drive around with Ken Kesey on his bus, back in the day, and he was friends with Chihuly, and he's got all sorts of. Before he passed, I mean, his husband has him now, but he actually had broken and misfired pieces that Chihuly gave him directly. He said, "Here, I can't sell this one," or this was a miss, a
Wow.
mistake I made on this, and he had them all over his living room, and notes and signs from him, and apparently tells me about going to his house and swimming in a swimming pool. Chihuly had he's not with us anymore, right?
I don't know if
I-
he is or not. He would be really old.
Well,
but,
had or has a swimming pool that he made in his house that he made himself with glass, with his own
wow.
artwork. He lined the whole
Yeah,
entire pool
I met
with glasswork.
the man, John Hopberg, I think his name was, that provided the money for the Pilchuck School.
Oh yeah,
He was a wealthy, a warehouser, Dankeman warehouser person,
yeah.
and controlled a lot of stock. But he was really into the arts, and Dale would pester him, and it's good to be a pest,
Oh yeah.
and squeaky wheel. Anyway, he gave a lot of money to get that school going, and he also started a printmaking school on the reservation, I believe, in Umatilla, Oregon.
Nice. Well, the Pilchuck
And-
School, one of the most prestigious art schools in the
Yeah.
in the world.
Well, this guy had quite a collection, this John Hopberg, because I remember a National Geographic coming out once, and it had all this giant pictorial of his collection
Wow.
in his home. And, he just, art needs patrons.
Yeah, it does.
For artists to continue work, it's a valuable thing. I mean, we Nonnis and I collect artwork as we can, as we can. But I'm just always grateful when anyone comes in and purchases, finds a piece of art that they absolutely love, and just how nice that is. Well, it's not only my business, but I've got
Right.
a jewelry business behind all this too. But it's really nice to see artists, get paid, or not get paid, but that affirmation
Right.
of someone liking their work, that validation, maybe that's the word I'm looking for. And sure, okay, it's commerce, but they're humans, and it must. I always feel good when somebody validates my design and
Right.
buys something and really likes it, and it's nice to be part of that process here with the gallery. We really represent some hardworking artists, that are really deep into this,
Yeah.
and most of them are professional, and that's all they do. And it doesn't mean, it could be a lonely existence as an artist, I'm sure. But, and a lot of, like Gina, she taught at Gonzaga, and that, that had to have been a pretty plum
Oh yeah.
place to be a part of that art program.
Well, I would imagine when you sell a piece and you find a buyer that's just absolutely in love with a piece, I would imagine it's like giving away a puppy or something. Like, man, this is really going to a great home where it's really going to be appreciated. I'm sure there's a huge satisfaction in that, knowing that it's going somewhere where it's
there
really
is
appreciated.
there's the satisfaction in knowing that that's really helping this artist continue their work. They get there's really it's validating all around that I didn't have a total screw loose when I when we thought of the gallery, I've had people come in before and go, "Are you actually making it?" Which I think is rude. But it's like, well, I don't know. We're in the 10th year and we grow every year, so
Probably, yeah.
But it's just kind of like, like it may seem like an anomaly in Chewelah. Like, what is this gallery doing in Chewelah? But Chewella's got a lot of stuff going
It
on
really
here.
does.
There's a
It
lot of
really does.
artists, the theater, that having that venue allowed Igor and the Red Elvises.
Exactly.
We've
We've
the
got our
Yale Press,
Oh, yeah.
beautiful walls. There's art there, I mean, this town, we talked a little bit about this earlier. No, in and of itself, art isn't the economic driver of the town in the sense that everybody's making money because there's art.
Right.
Art is an outlet, community involvement,
Yep.
culture.
A sense of belonging.
Having these theater groups and these beautiful places where art can be seen.
Yep.
And when you're someone, maybe you're an entrepreneur that wants to move his or her business to Chewelah, and you look for things.
Mhm.
They got restaurants. What's their scene that's vibrant?
Right.
They're doing this. They're doing these things. They have an active, creative development,
Right.
thing. They have an arts guild. This is important
It is.
for someone thinking about locating or having an idea for a business. The ski hills up the road, the 27-hole golf course, and it's in and of itself. It's art doesn't make the world go around there, but it's an integral part.
And it's everything
I
that
think
supports
of
that
attracting good business, and that is a fact. There's data that proves that out. So
it accounts for about 15% of our state's economy, which 15%. Yeah, it doesn't seem that impressive, but it's billions of dollars.
well, we're not
and it's
Boeing or whatever,
Right,
or
exactly.
the timber industry or whatever, but people who succeed at a lot of things want interesting, fun things to do within the community, whether it's buying art or seeing a play,
yeah.
or going skiing or golfing, or it's all these
Well,
things together.
People will come to go skiing and they'll stay because there's this. They'll rent a hotel room. They have to get gas. They're gonna have to stop somewhere and eat. They're gonna shop, and then they're here. They're gonna walk down our streets. They're gonna shop in our stores. They're gonna buy snacks again at the gas station when they leave town. It's this sort of everything rolls in towards it. It creates
Yeah, we're
a
not
reason
a
to stay.
culture desert.
Yeah, no, not at all.
At all.
Yeah.
And I know I've talked about this before, but when saw that guy talk, who freelance writer for Forbes magazine, and just art is an economic driver
It is.
in all its forms, and it's just part of that puzzle.
Yeah. And like you say, it's not the individual pieces of art that drive it. It's the culture around it. It brings people here. It makes them stay.
Yeah, I'm just like having good schools or good health care or
Exactly.
and yeah, we want businesses that could locate here, that could employ people, and there's a lot of work to be done around that.
Exactly.
And I can only imagine it's not what I do. I mean, I really just try to focus on our part of it. It is really fun to be part of this community.
It is.
I love it here.
It is. It's definitely I know every little town says it, but I feel like this is unique here. We have something special here. I really do.
Yeah. Went home last night, took my board, went up to Browns Lake,
Yeah.
paddled and swam, came back. It's like, this is really integrating all these things that I want in my life.
Yep.
Art and activity, and and community, being a part of the community. It's really
Exactly.
fun. It's
Exactly.
fun.
We'll tell you what, Tim, we're about out of time.
All right.
We just want to let everyone know the Art Talk tonight
Yes.
happening at 6:30 at the
6:30.
Quartzsite Brewery.
Yeah, the brewery usually opens about 6:15. The talk usually starts a little before 7. We wait till the venue fills up.
Well, you gotta get your beverage and get comfy.
Well, absolutely.
And
We
sit
got to
down and-
support Jeannie behind the
Heck yeah,
bar there. Friendliest person there, and so,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. And then tomorrow from 5 to 8 is the Art Walk, first Thursday Art Walk.
Yes, and
We
we're
have-
going to have good weather. It looks like it might even help us by cooling down a little bit. And
Yeah.
I love our summer art walks. It kind of has a little street fair feel
It really
to
does.
it. Yeah.
And I'm excited. This will be the second time this year we've had a busker out there. To me,
Yeah,
having
that's
that
fun.
music out on the street, we've got the music blaring out from Fired Up Pizza with
Yep.
Craig and the Brats, and we got our busker around the corner and people walking around.
We got good
seeing the art,
food.
good food,
Yeah. and
good
drink.
company, good friends. All right, so today Art Talk 6:30, Art Walk tomorrow 5 to 8.
Yep.
You
6:30 at the brewery.
Exactly. You can stay tuned right here tonight on KCHW. Oh, I don't have it open. I don't even have it open. I should have had this open. From 6 to 8 p.m., Music for the Mountain. 8 to 10 p.m. is Dirt Road Blues with our very own Dirt Road Doug McQuain, speaking of one of the Brats.
Yeah.
And then from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m., we have Planetary Radio, Sea Change Radio, Echo Shock Total, and Earth Date. Tune in tomorrow morning for the KCHW Morning Show with myself and our new Thursday Morning Show co-host, Gina Greenwood. And we have some belly dancers. They're going to join us tomorrow morning for the morning show. Yeah, I think that's a KCHW first. That's going to be a fun one. So tune in tomorrow morning for that. Tim, thank you so much for coming out. Anything you want to share with us before we go?
Thank you. Thank you
No
for
problem.
having this radio station and Scott and valuable. You're just a valuable part of the community, and it's nice to have that way to talk about what we're doing in the community. And this
Yeah.
is it's awesome.
Well, thank you. I
Yeah.
tell you what, I feel like a kid in a candy shop here every day. It just never gets old. I always enjoy it. I still have to pinch myself to think, man, this is what I'm doing right now.
I know it's always.
Yeah.
I feel like a mole when I come out of here, though. You're in this dark room. Well, with these ambient lights here, and then you go out into the daylight.
I prefer mushroom. I prefer to be called a mushroom.
Okay.
Sitting here in the dark and the cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Tim, for joining us. Thank you, everyone out there, for listening.
Cheers.
We're going to let you get
See
on your
y'all
drive
tonight.
home, and we'll see you later. You've been listening to About the Arts with me and Tim here on KCHW 102.7, Northern Lights Public Radio.
That was really.
And now we return you to our regular scheduled program, In Progress.